MotoGP legend Jorge Lorenzo has delivered a frank and revealing assessment of Francesco Bagnaia, suggesting the former double world champion should turn to a sports psychologist to rescue his career momentum after a deeply underwhelming 2025 season. Once regarded as the natural heir to Ducati's modern dominance, Bagnaia entered last season as one of the sport's most formidable forces. His 2024 campaign was among the strongest of his career, finishing with 11 victories and missing out on a third world title by a mere 10 points. On paper, he appeared perfectly positioned to become the primary rival to Marc Marquez. Instead, the reality in 2025 has been brutally different. Bagnaia's problems began almost immediately with the new GP25. From the opening rounds, he struggled to generate confidence from the front end, a crucial element of modern MotoGP riding, where riders push the limits of front tyre grip under braking and corner entry. What followed was a season defined by inconsistency and frustration. The Italian managed just 2 race victories, failed to score points in the final 5 consecutive rounds, and ultimately finished 5th in the championship, a staggering 257 points behind Marc Marquez. For a rider once considered Ducati's benchmark, the fall-off was dramatic. Perhaps more telling than the results themselves was the sense of confusion. Despite relentless setup changes and technical experiments, Ducati and Bagnaia were unable to identify a clear root cause. Each solution seemed to create a new problem, leaving both rider and team trapped in a cycle of trial and error. Lorenzo, a 5-time world champion and one of the most analytical minds in modern MotoGP, believes the issue is no longer purely technical. In comments to Moto.it, Lorenzo argued that the arrival and immediate superiority of Marquez at Ducati disrupted Bagnaia's mental equilibrium. Bagnaia, in Lorenzo's view, moved from a position of total control, Italian rider, Italian bike number 1 within the team, to suddenly being overshadowed. That shift, Lorenzo believes, triggered anxiety, self-doubt, and a gradual erosion of the natural aggression that once defined Bagnaia's riding style. According to the Spaniard, the problem is visible on track. Rather than riding with instinct and freedom, Bagnaia has appeared tense, hesitant, and overly analytical, classic symptoms, Lorenzo suggests, of a rider who has lost trust in both the machine and himself. Lorenzo has been clear that Bagnaia cannot solve this alone. Drawing on his own career, Lorenzo revealed that he too sought the help of a sports psychologist during difficult periods. In his view, external support is not a weakness but a professional tool used by elite athletes across disciplines. He suggested Bagnaia may benefit from a specialist mental coach, guidance from figures such as Valentino Rossi within the VR46 structure, or structured sessions with a professional sports psychologist. The central objective, according to Lorenzo, is simple: restore joy, confidence, and emotional balance. Without that reset, Lorenzo warned, Bagnaia could face serious difficulties when future contract negotiations arise, a stark reminder that MotoGP is as much about perception as pure lap time. One of the most striking parts of Lorenzo's analysis was his emphasis on humility. He argued that the first real step towards recovery is admitting there is a problem, removing ego from the equation and being willing to seek solutions beyond one's own control. In a sport built around pride, speed, and personal identity, that can be the hardest corner to navigate. Lorenzo pointed to Andrea Dovizioso as a powerful example. When Dovizioso began working with a psychologist in 2017, his riding technique did not suddenly transform. What changed was his mentality, his belief, clarity, and decision-making. The result was a significantly stronger and more resilient rider. The upcoming 3-month break and the opportunity to test revised machinery could prove decisive for Bagnaia's future. Technically, he still possesses elite-level ability. Lorenzo even stated that Bagnaia's raw potential is at least equal to that of Alex Marquez. but MotoGP history shows that talent alone is never enough. If Bagnaia can reset mentally, rediscover his natural rhythm, and rebuild trust in himself, a return to the sharp end of the grid is still possible. If not, this period may be remembered as the turning point when one of Ducati's brightest stars began to fade. For now, the real battle for Pecco Bagnaia may not be fought on the circuit, but inside his own mind. Beyond the raw results, what alarms many inside the paddock is the visible change in Bagnaia's body language. Where he once radiated calm authority in the Ducati garage, 2025 has frequently shown a rider isolated in thought, helmet still on long after sessions, staring at data screens as if searching for answers that telemetry alone cannot provide. Former riders and engineers quietly point to a growing modern trend in MotoGP. The margins at the top are so fine that mental resilience has become the ultimate differentiator. Aerodynamics, ride height devices, and electronics have leveled much of the mechanical advantage, leaving psychological sharpness as the final frontier between victory and mediocrity. There is also the internal pressure of being Ducati's long-term project. Bagnaia was not just a rider, he was supposed to be the face of the manufacturer's golden era. When expectations rise to that level, even minor performance dips can feel like personal failures, and that emotional weight can be far more damaging than any technical limitation. From a strategic perspective, Ducati now faces a delicate balancing act. Publicly, they continue to back Bagnaia, but privately the factory must already be evaluating future leadership scenarios within the team. MotoGP is unforgiving, and manufacturers rarely wait for a crisis to deepen before planning their next move. What makes this situation particularly complex is that Bagnaia's problems do not follow a simple technical pattern. Some weekends he has flashed race-winning pace, only to disappear completely the following round. That volatility is rarely rooted in engineering alone. More often, it is the hallmark of a rider fighting internal battles. The 3-month pause in racing could not have arrived at a more critical time. For Bagnaia, this is not a standard off-season reset, but more like a psychological pit-stopper moment to step away from lap times, championship tables, and constant comparison to rivals. If he chooses to follow Lorenzo's advice, it could mark a turning point rather than an admission of weakness. In elite-level sport, the most successful athletes are often those brave enough to accept that raw talent needs structured mental support to survive sustained pressure. Still, there is a cautionary tale that hangs quietly over this story. MotoGP has seen multiple champions lose their edge, not because they forgot how to ride, but because they could not outrun their own doubts. The line between a world champion and a midfield regular is sometimes drawn entirely inside the helmet.